Good morning, good morning, good morning. Glad you're here. It's going to be a great day. Got about 54 patients waiting up here for us. Yeah! We're looking for you, your expertise, and your smiling faces. I just wanted to say one announcement before we get started with our program today. To remind everybody, if you've signed up, tomorrow's robotic boot camp, as I'm calling it. It'll be awesome. Starting in the quiet lounge. At 7:15 to 7:45 is breakfast and registration, and then training will begin promptly at 8 o'clock in rooms 21 through 23. When you sign in the morning, that's when you'll be kind of given which room to go to, because remember we're doing the 3 different tracks, so whichever track fits you best. Desi has it already designated out, and she'll send you to where you need to start. Any questions about that?
Do we have to do a module?
Yes, you have to do modules before you attend. If you need help with that, you can see Desi today. She can help you with that. Okay? It's never too late, Edwin, until you miss the boat completely, all right? And then even then, we might be able to helicopter you in. You never know. Right? So Diane, I'll turn it over to you. This is the first of our trauma series that we're going to be doing on our monthly meetings. We're doing February, April, June, and September. It's going to be our trauma series. So you'll get your 2 pediatric and your 2 adult traumas, okay?
Thank you very much. I would like to start off with our adult trauma hour with Dr. Ben Abo. He is a reference person, I guess, for snakes, and he's driven all the way up from Naples to help us today. So please welcome him.
Good morning. Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. Those in the back by the snake that I brought, you can hear me okay? All right. So it's real good to be here. My name's Ben Abo. I'm an EM doctor, an EMS physician, and toxinologist. Does anyone know what a toxinologist is versus a toxicologist? So basically, toxinology deals with toxins from living things, so fauna and flora. So basically, I'm a venomologist, as opposed to dealing with the methyl ethyl bad stuff. Although in the ER, I also have to deal with it. But I'll get into a little bit my background further. But this, of course, is an 87-pound non-venomous snake at the Miami Zoo. I'm also the medical director for a number of zoos and wildlife sanctuaries and things like that. Despite my big head of curly hair, I do have a number of roles. I just left the University of Florida, so now I'm down in Naples. That's where I just drove up from with my mother. Not walking around much because I just had surgery on my knee last week. So if you see me kind of like pacing, it's not like that I'm doing the geeky dance. It's just I'm trying to do the exercises and straighten my knee. But I'm the medical director for Florida Task Force 1, which is the left picture, it's the Urban Search and Rescue Team. And at the IMAX right now in Orlando, you can see the IMAX movie on our team and our rescue dog. Go and see it. I'm a practicing EMS physician, so a lot of the times for Lake County, where I'm associate medical director, City of Gainesville, Collier County down south, I will respond to the scene for trauma or MCIs and things like that. And of course, the medical director, which I'm going to get into, the Venom 1 and Venom 2 response teams, as well as Shark Week. I have nothing to disclose other than I did use the model for IKEA. And for a good reference, I don't get any money or kickbacks from it. The Wilderness EMS textbook is very good, and it's actually telling a lot of the training for EMS and those that are doing care that are bringing your patients. And 2 good Medscape articles really to dispel a lot of the myths. And then, if you're looking at me thinking, I've seen him somewhere other than the news before, had a lot of coffins for anyone see the show Kings of Pain? Where the 2 guys are going around the world getting bit and stung on purpose. Mm-hmm. That's my TV show, and I am on it. I'm the medical director. And I'm actually there in case they get hurt or when they get hurt. In fact, that is a 16-foot reticulated python, non-venomous, but it did some damage probably the most fun out of it, other than traveling the world and doing this TV show and dealing with different venoms and all, is the memes that are coming out of
Thank you.
people just making their facial expressions. But first, let's talk about, what a snake is. Which is classic.
This is a snake. If you're afraid of snakes, then it's a nope rope. Like if you go to the bathroom and you see this, nope rope. And if a nope rope has poisonous venom, then it's a danger noodle, like the shake snake and the cobra. Do not boop, or you will get the hurt juice. But if you love the snacks, then it's a boop noodle. Look at that cute snoot. Deserves a boop. Snacks also have peepers, noodle necks, smelly flickers, and nom-nom seekers. Those are for finding cheese boys. Other names for nope ropes are slippery tube dudes, hazard spaghetti, spicy noodles, caution ramen, and murder spagurter. Whatever you call them, just remember, no step on snack. There are many kinds of snacks, like Big Thick Boy, Slim Boy, also known as the Judgmental Shoelace, Original Snack, Ugly But Still Level Snack, and Screaming Worm Boy. And can't forget the Lucky Noodle Boy. Look at that little pupper face. Noodles have many activities. Snacks eat snacks, ropes do scopes. When they're tired, they do a yawn. Sometimes snacks wear a sweater, and if you're lucky, they'll wear a hat. Top hat, party hat, this hat, that hat, weird hat. Visualize your snacks and anything else.
Any question about snakes? All right. So I mentioned about the venom response units. Now, I didn't initially start it, but Miami-Dade Venom 1 is the largest anti-venom bank in the world. I used to think it was just a hemisphere in the U.S., but I realized that the military does not have a supply. And I'll show you more of what it is. And then for what responds more around here is Venom 2, which I started 2 years ago here in Lake County, so we're based right in Lady Lake. So we'll bring you anti-venoms and things like that. Of course, being the medical director of Venom 1 down South Florida and Venom 2 in Central Florida makes me Cobra Commander. But there it is, okay. I gladly will email out and everything else. I do things like Pulp Fiction where the end, let's start with the main points that I want you to take home today. This is the power slide. This is also at the end. We'll get it out. But basically, the do's and the don'ts of care. This is pre-hospital, this is in-hospital, this is post, okay? You need to immobilize, keep the level of the heart or higher, right? Call a venom or tox specialist. You here are in the you are in Tampa's poison control area. You can also call me directly. You can call the venom team directly. We all work together very well. A lot of times, actually, in the last 4 months, Tampa Poison Control has actually specifically asked me to come over here to your children's ICU to take a look at specific snake bites. I want you to note and mark the leading edge of swelling and tenderness. This is different. How many of you have taken care of a snake bite? No one? Okay, one. It's gonna happen, right? A lot of times they used to preach, measure their circumference at different spots, and you keep measuring. All those numbers are just numbers to keep nurses busy. So don't do it. It doesn't give us any useful information. Provide analgesia, right? We prefer not NSAIDs because they can bleed theoretically, things like that. But it's a very painful process. And leave the snake alone. Leave the snake alone. Leave it alone. What do you do with the snake? Leave it alone. Don't kill it, don't catch it, don't bring it in. And sure as heck, don't shoot it through the system from the ER to the ICU in the vacuum tube. That's happened. All right? Yeah, that was a good phone call that I got.
Incoming snake.
The nurses have floated her down from another unit and thought that the fellow wanted to see the snake to help identify it. Anyway, do not shock, do not suck, do not tourniquet, do not excise, suck, extract, ice. Don't wait for symptoms and don't prophylactically do a fasciotomy. In fact, a fasciotomy should never be done for envenomation, and don't give NSAIDs. That's the take-home points. All right, now let's get into the fun stuff. We're going to talk about, and I want you to learn that prevention and education are key. That's why you're here. Urban legends and, oh, I've always learned it that way, or this is what this old textbook says, are dangerous. Right? Again, there's no need to bring or kill what? The snake. Let it be. Right? Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Right? It's going to happen. Know who to call and how to call, and know that time and logistics can and do save lives. Because when you need to, you need a carpe remedium, which means not seize the donut, seize the cure. Okay? This is a snake. These are the danger noodles. Now, these are not indigenous to the U.S. These are cobras. However, the first snake bite I ever treated in the city of Pittsburgh as a paramedic was a cobra bite. Again, cobras are not indigenous to Pittsburgh. Penguins are if you're a hockey fan, but not cobras, right? And you better believe there are plenty of people around here that have cobras. There's a handout of like do's and don'ts, which is another summary that's in posters and a lot of ERs and things from the venom response team, and the key numbers, which I'll give you again at the end. And yes, I'm giving you my cell phone number. These are the statistics for Florida. Notice the pie chart? Guys, we gotta work on this, seriously. But if you notice, more than half are middle-aged, 18 to 26. 96% is in the extremity. In fact, I've only had 4 envenomations ever that I've treated. I've treated hundreds of snake bites that were not on the face. That were not on the extremity. We'll get into that. Most are during April and October, which, what does April and October, what happens during that time? Storms, right? Hurricanes. It's not like Sharknado with like snakes flying around or snake hands, right? However, you're more likely to have an envenomation or get bit before and after a storm. They're not trying to hunt you down. They're just trying to follow their food or get to safety, or they're flooded out of their house. Right? And who do we have to thank for most of our envenomations? Good old Florida man. Now I say that tongue-in-cheek, kidding around, because actually the statistics are pretty there for it, but there are plenty of children that get envenomated, hikers and things, and I'm going to show you and get into that specifically. We're going to spend most of our time on domestic envenomations, but I will get into a little bit of the exotics, and you're about to see why on the next slide. A good way to remember who's more likely to get envenomated are the T's. Tattoos, teeth ratio, 20s testosterone. So young, male, tattooed, missing teeth, pickup truck, drinking alcohol, tequila. You see all the T's? You get what I'm getting at? All right. Proven purity journals. All these blue dots here represent not people that have not venomous snakes or pets. These are licenses to have a venomous creature in their home. So one of these dots, let's zoom in on here a little bit. Oh, here's Central Florida, right? That's more south too, but you can see plenty around here. These are per license. So we have somebody in Claremont that my firefighters responded to a house fire for. They burned something in the microwave, go figure. The firefighters arrived, and when they went in through the living room, they saw 72 tanks with all venomous species. And why is a great question. Florida man? Now, there are people that have very weird hobbies. There are people that do it professionally. There are people that extract the venoms. We'll kind of get into it. But this stuff is here, and it's all around. And it's closer and more common than we think. Right? Are all snakes venomous? No. They have, but the whole point of the venom is for what? To hunt, to eat. They don't want to waste their venom on you. But, so, they're not hunting you down. In fact, there's only one snake that will hunt a human. And that is a reticulated python in Bali. That one that I had bit the guy on TV show. Great episode. All right, those get up to 30 feet. It's not like the Burmese pythons or anacondas that are loose in the Everglades. Right? Those are out there. And the domesticated ones are very common. But venomous snakes are not going to chase you, proven or disproven, right? And they don't want to use their venom on you. But the venom has all these different properties to do damage so that they can eat and survive, right? They can't cut up their food. They don't have arms unless I'm drawing on Facebook. Little sassy snake, right? Some of those collections are very professionally done. This is my friend Cody, who is about 40 minutes outside of Orlando. All the orange tags are venomous snakes. The green tag is a non-snake, but it's still venomous lizard. Okay? This is in someone's house, right? He does it responsibly. We have an action plan if somebody gets bit and everything that goes through. Then what's this? This is a very typical Florida home. This is a very typical Florida man. Job security, right? Does anyone know where this is?
Buffalo.
Terrific. This is Ocala. And what happened in Ocala? There was a cobra on the loose. This guy let one of his cobras, a king cobra, no, sorry, a monocle cobra, loose. So the fire chief, everyone was looking for it, and the fire chief called Venom 1 and said, if one of my guys gets bit, what do we do? So he said, just intubate him and send him to Shands, which is right outside of Gainesville, and ship him to Dr. Ava. And we'll send the antivenom as needed. Right? We don't have cobras indigenous. You can't just call the zoos. And that's the whole point of what I really get into. It's the education and delivery of antivenom. The cobra bite that I had in Pittsburgh, what did they do? They called the zoo. The Pittsburgh Zoo doesn't have any cobras. So they don't have any cobra antivenom. So we had to call the Philadelphia Zoo. You have to get good luck getting a hold of somebody that has the antivenom. And even if they have it, they have to be okay with giving up the antivenom because it's in case their people get bit. And even if they're nice and they say, yes, have the cobra antivenom, come and get it. How are you going to get it? So I have the logistics and everything set up, and it's been, the team for Venom 1 has been around for 21 years. All right? So this is what we said to do, and we'll ship, and we finally got new coolers about 5 months ago. That's the monocle cobra, because he's wearing a monocle, right? Guess where they found the snake? They still have not found it. He's still loose. If you're on Twitter, I highly recommend you follow Ocala Cobra. He's awesome, but he's still loose. Leave Twitter comments. What about here in Orlando? There was a king cobra. A king cobra grows 18 feet. 1/3 of its body length can be vertical. I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm not even 6 feet tall. So if a king cobra just pops its head up, it is over me, right? This was loose in Orlando, in a residential area a few years ago, missing for several days. Where did they find it? Not at Disney World with the big mouse, but under the neighbor's washing machine. I already hate folding clothes, but imagine, standing by the dryer, folding clothes, barefoot, you hear something moving, there's an 18-foot king cobra. Yes?
That's a block over from my house.
What's that?
That's a block over from my house.
A block over from your house. I'm going to need your address, house party, no. Right? And people do get envenomed, of course, and globally people die. Most times, bless you, it can lead into problems. This is not in Florida, but this is a teenager. Imagine getting a call as a paramedic firefighter to the parking lot at Walmart for an unresponsive teenager. You get on scene. Anyone here ever be an EMT or a paramedic? Right? Scene safe BSI, right? We say the scene's automatically safe. You see a kid slumped over the wheel, knock on the door, he doesn't respond, you open the door, we pull him out, we realize he's in cardiac arrest, you start working it. Then the cop gets on scene and says, there's a suicide note on the dash. He was bullied in school and he had a pet cobra legally, because Texas is basically Florida man in central US. And he poked it multiple times to make it bite him multiple times. That's how he committed suicide. Right? Now, that is a very unfortunate case. And we are very lucky in the United States, whether exotic or domestic, only 5 to 6 people die in the US per year by envenomation. So you're saying to me, what's the point? It's very different globally. Snakebite Foundation that I started because every 5 seconds someone dies. It's like 600,000 envenomations globally, and a majority, 98% of them die in other countries. In the US, only 5 to 6. But the point that we're trying to do is prevent permanent pain, permanent disability, permanent disfigurement, right? And of course death, but statistically speaking, you're probably not going to die in the US, unless you do it on purpose, all right? The treatment for snake envenomation is 1, antivenom. It is the only true thing that can prevent and stop the progression because time is tissue. Okay. Now, antivenom, this is the first antivenom for North American rattlesnakes. Look at that vial, look at that syringe. None of us in the room practiced when things were like this. And the old antivenom, which was made by Wyeth, was very famous for being the first polyvalent, which means from multiple species, antivenom, but is also famous for horrible side effects. But in 1999, right, in 1999, just in time, because from 99 to 2000, snakebite envenomations in the US climbed 243%.
Wow.
And it keeps going up because we're messing in their areas. Snakes aren't in your yard, you're in their yard, right? But the new product, ProFab, and some others are very safe and very effective. Do they cost a lot? Yes, but not as much as permanent pain, permanent disability, permanent disfigurement, or death, right? We're trying to save lives and, I just heard a word, limbs, right? Now, everyone's gonna always ask, is it anti-venom or anti-venin? This is my summary, right? Venom if you were American, venin if you're British-based. Period, end of story. I don't care if you say anti-venom, I don't care if you say anti-venin, just don't hyphenate it in front of it. All right? Now, I was telling you about the Venom 1 team. This is my fridge. This is over 1,500 vials housed down in Miami-Dade of antivenoms, from black widow to jellyfish to stonefish to a variety of snakes and snails and everything. I have over 55 different types. They cover all around the world, and we will get it to you. If you notice, everything in the right fridge has boring, small black and white print, as opposed to everywhere else that's nice, bright, and colorful. The boring stuff is FDA approved, made in the US. The FDA is very boring. All the other stuff that hospitals cannot legally keep on site are colorful. Even, I mean, look at this. It looks like Easter colors, right? Easter colors, and have pictures of the things. These ones in particular are made in Thailand. On one side it's English, the other side is in Thai. I don't read Thai, but when a cute nurse is walking by, I make it look like I have a Thai box that I'm reading. Let's be real, right? But this venom bank will get it to anywhere you need, right? The blue dots up here represent in Florida, the poison control centers. Of course, orange and blue is where I used to be at the University of Florida and where the venom response teams are. But we have helicopters, boats, MOUs with FWC, whatever we need to do, we'll get it there, right? And like I said, during the storms, before and after is when you're more likely to get envenomated. This was the headline on national news during Hurricane Florence. And everyone was questioning, thinking that snakes are going to come flying through the wind, like I said before, Sharknado, or snake pain, as I said, right? It's not like that, but you are more likely to be envenomed, right? What do we do when a storm's coming? We prep the house, we put up the sidings and all that kind of stuff. Well, where do we usually keep that stuff? In the garage, on the side, right? Where they get flooded and the snakes are just following their food, right? They're around. They're already in your yards. Don't think that you're getting rid of them. They're there. They just don't want to be seen. So, yeah, welcome to Florida. Welcome to the US. But let's get into the main types of local envenomations. This is Big Country, Chuck Seifert. If you saw a show on Animal Planet about the venom team called Swamp Wars, he was on it. He's now a captain instead of a lieutenant, but here he's showing us a pit viper, the crotalids, right? He's showing us in particular the teeth. These teeth are the front fangs. They're the equivalent of a 21 gauge needle, right, to inject their venom. What's the difference between a venom and a poison? Don't say spelling. Poison is something that's going to cause damage, but a venom specifically is a toxin or poison that has to be injected. As opposed to inhaling cyanide, it has to be injected, right? So, what makes a pit viper or crotolid a pit viper? How do I recognize a venomous snake? For one, if it has a rattle, it's a pit viper, right? What's the rattle for? Not to distract you so it can bite you. He's twerking to warn you. It's really hard to do with the leg breaks. Rattle, 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 get away. of non-rattlesnakes that are pit vipers. So how do I know it's a venomous snake? I know some of you know some of these, the truths and the myths here. So I'm going to get into that. You're talking about a coral snake. What about the pit vipers? So a lot of people say the shape of the head, which in general is pretty good. Now this is not in the US, but the shape of the head, if it's bigger, more like a triangle or an arrow shape, it's more likely to be venomous. However, there's a Neurodia, which is a very harmless snake that actually takes care of rodents and rabies and things like that, that look very similar. So it's really hard to tell. The other thing is, here we go, these pits right here. These are the heat-seeking pits so they can see their prey. That's why they're known as pit vipers. Right? Pit vipers, you get it? Yeah. If you were close enough to the snake to see the pits, too close, bro. All right? What else? A lot of people say about the eyes, right? The vertical eyes or the slit-like eyes. Again, if you're close enough to see those vertical eyes, you're too close. But also, some can also change and they can dilate their eyes. We were just talking about the triangular head. The top one is Neurodia. It's a harmless banded water snake. And on the bottom is a cottonmouth. So the big triangular shaped head isn't going to really help you in this case, right? Here is a copperhead, which is a non-rattle viper. It's only in northern Florida and then up through the northeast and throughout the rest of the US. But this is not a two-headed snake. They are mating. But I felt like I owed them dinner or something for taking the picture. But what do you notice about the top snake? His eyes dilated, right? So you can't use that rule either, right? And of course, the other thing that makes a pit viper or a crotolid are the teeth on hinges, right? Their fangs that inject the needles can come out, and they can actually move them like chopsticks. They're very pliable. I used to think that a snake just unhinges its jaw, very rigid and like to swallow its prey, kind of like my ex-girlfriend yelling at me, right? But actually they're very pliable, which I'll show you. So again, here's Captain Seifert. This is an eastern diamondback. We have them all over Florida. It is the largest venomous snake in North America, 23rd in the world, right? A lot of venom. Now look at this video, right? So the anatomy that I overlaid here, he's yawning, see? The fang, the sheath, just like in a vacutainer. It's something sharp with rubber or biologic over it, and it slides back so the metal or the fang can puncture through, right? They don't have arms. They use them like chopsticks. And some of them, to protect themselves, because Florida man's picking them up, will put its fang through its own bottom jaw to envenomate you. Right? Not that he wants to. And this is something I feel all healthcare workers see. This is in slow motion. He's an eastern diamondback. He's not squeezing at all, but look at the venom glands squeezing. Look at all that poison being injected. The amount, it's very toxic, and the force and the speed. That's being injected into your foot, your ankle, your hand, whatever. Right? That's in slow motion. And now look at the kids in the back. You're like, what? So that snake needs the venom in order to eat. But if it needs to defend itself, because you stepped on him or you're trying to move him or you're trying to mess with him, he will. I love it. This is at one of the places where they extract professionally. Right? So it's like, oh my God, snake. What is the venom going to do? What is that all that toxin going to do? Right? Now, your textbooks commonly say that you either just bleed to death, so it's a heme toxin, or it's a neurotoxin like the coral snake. It's not that simple, right? Now, there's certain pit vipers and certain toxins that will make you bleed to death, but how it makes you bleed to death is very different. This is a gentleman that got bit on the foot, right? He started having a bleed in his head. This is in Africa, right? his spinal tap, because he was herniating and bleeding, and they did, this is first bump. It's not just a bloody tap. That was right in, done by an anesthetist. Okay? After he got antivenom, his CSF looked like the clear one.
Wow.
That's flat out his CSF. Right? I got these pictures from a paramedic friend of mine who treats a lot of venomous snake bites as well. But this is proof that the antivenom can cure it. It's not giving them blood products so they stop bleeding. Right? You need to stop the venom. So how does the venom work? Right? He doesn't just work in public. And again, he won't just bleed to death. And it's important to realize that not all venom is created equal. So the damage that's done clinically is different. I have some similarities. In fact, venom is a cocktail of multiple toxins and different ingredients, right? Some of those ingredients, I hate words on slides, as you've noticed already, but I put a bunch on. You know, there's neurotoxins that paralyze, they destroy receptors, or they block receptors. Even if it's a heme toxin, is it destroying your platelets? Or is it destroying your red blood cells? Or is it stimulating the clotting cascade so that you go into DIC? Or is it just blocking it? There's all these different mechanisms, right? So they're all different. Even within species, you have different venom mixtures. The eastern diamondback has neurotoxins and cytotoxins or necrotoxins that destroy tissue. And then there's even cardiotoxins and heme toxins, right? So it's very complicated. Venom is not all created equal. They're like cocktails, but even if you're ordering an old-fashioned, are you getting good bourbon or plastic bottle bourbon? Or are they just putting in some Mad Dog 50-50? Right? You don't know what you're quite getting. So that's why it's important to have people like myself or the Poison Control Center just to help you out, right? A great reminder of this, if you've seen on Netflix 72 Deadliest Animals, Latin America version, there's a story about one of my patients. She's a California gymnast, 12 years old at the time, on vacation in Belize, believe it or not. She gets bit by a venomous snake called a fer-de-lance. You can see what I call the deathometer on the top, how dangerous this snake is if it bites you. It is like a rattlesnake on Flocka. Right? This is like ridiculous. Right? As soon as it bit her, she went into respiratory arrest. She sees, she's bleeding out, she's everywhere, even from her eyes, the IV site. They bagged her for 45 minutes. They gave her the first 2 vials, transported her to an actual hospital, gave her another 6 vials. Her color came back, the bleeding stopped, her pressure came back up, right? So this is when she was being flown to Joe DiMaggio down in South Florida. And on the way, you know, she was bleeding out among all these other things. On the way, she gets to the ICU, and I'm finishing a shift when I was doing residency in Miami Beach, and I get a phone call from the nurse in the ICU. She said, yeah, so she's extubated, she's doing great. She's not really moving her left side much, but that might just be the sedation. Does anyone know if a sedative or paralytic it only works unilateral? No, so I said, you need to scan that girl right now. But I said, I want to talk to the physician or the NP or the PA, they need a scan right now. So they get the scan, and there might be a little something in the front. So I get to the ICU, and we're literally ripping off her braces so that she can get an MRI, and she had an ischemic stroke, right? So again, the venom makes you coagulopathic. Is it making you clot, or is it making you bleed? Right? Chicken and egg, but either way, there's bad stuff happening. She did recover, she's doing great. She had to learn to walk and talk again, but she did terrific afterwards. Now in general, no bite's really the same, but I've seen enough bites that we try to get out there. There is the damage from the actual thing, injection. Now if I stab you for not laughing at my jokes or making fun of my hair with a 21 gauge needle, it's gonna hurt. You might see a spot of blood, right? Is it gonna swell up? Is it gonna become like ecchymotic? Is that pain, that swelling and tenderness, everything going to continue to progress up? No, so if you're seeing those signs progress, that means there is venom, right? And on a lot of cases where they're afraid to use the antivenom because they're like, well, it might just be a dry bite, and their whole foot's swollen up. I haven't had any volunteers to show me with the snake on them, so this is a non-venomous, but you have the trauma from the fang marks. The whole measuring the fang marks, how far apart they are to figure out how big the snake is, doesn't work. right? Because their fangs can move around, right? You will see blebs, blood blisters, and it'll start breaking down tissue, muscles, things like that. Those are the necrotoxins that work in different ways. You will see redness and swelling, but you might see one without the other, right? And some of these, you won't see these physical local signs until late. Water moccasins tend to cause a lot of swelling, a lot of tenderness. The breakdown as it spreads up lymphatically, and a lot of ecchymosis. This is a 1-year-old that grabbed a note rope, right? He couldn't speak any English, couldn't speak any Spanish really. And duele aquí, duele ow, right? You can see how swollen his arm is. That's on the left. The hands on the right are not that same kid. This is a Florida landscaper who's, after he got the anti-venom, within 15 minutes his hand swelling came down. At first he couldn't bend his little sausage fingers, right? But the swelling was there. He said he didn't see when he was weed whacking, and I said, yeah, right? He said, no, really, Doc. And I said, yeah, right? And I'm calling your bluff. And finally he goes, all right, I was messing with the snake. I saw it, I was trying to hit him with the weed whacker, and when he pulled back, the snake got defensive, rightfully so, and karma bites, right? So does the snake. Now, this is a 19-year-old girl in Ocala National Forest who was just walking, and she accidentally stepped on a snake that was sunbathing, right? It took her an hour and a half to get out of the forest to the nearest hospital. The hospital said, she is bad invenomation, we need to send her to Shands, right? We're going to transfer her. They had anti-venom. They didn't use it because they're like, well, they'll just get it there. Because we might need it for somebody else. Right? So as soon as she got to me, this is her ankle and foot. This isn't even a cankle, folks. This is like foot to thigh. It's a thankle. All this tissue damage is irreversible. Irreversible. Pain, irreversible damage. She's a dancer, she's got permanent pain, permanent disfigurement, permanent disability, right? If she had only gotten anti-venom sooner, right? Because the anti-venom is going to stop the process from causing more damage. And of course the blebs, like I said, right? Here you can see the necrosis getting on there. Now it's not infection, it's not neck fash. It's a little too quick for infection to set in. They can cause some serious issues. Now this person is already a vasculopath. What do you notice? He can't argue with me because he doesn't have a leg to stand on. Right? So he's an amputee. He already has poor vasculature as a homeless guy down south, but he got bit on the hand, and you can see all that tissue damage. But because we got him anti-venom very quickly, we were able to stop it from getting any worse, and he's a right-handed male.
He obviously couldn't run away.
Now they're like, oh, people say, oh, you're just going to bleed to death. This is a problem. Wouldn't you agree? Now this gentleman, it's hard with the projector, but he was bit for the 7th time by an eastern diamondback. Yes, I said the 7th time. Your Honor, 7 times. Siete, right? So he had an allergic reaction to the venom. I'm going to say this again. He had an allergic reaction to the venom. So not only is he starting to get very severe envenomation, he's bleeding out from everywhere. He's a big, chunky guy. And they were very quick. Within 15 minutes, he had swelling up past his elbow. And you can see the marking of the time. But what they didn't mark or didn't look for were the neurosymptoms. It was like, well, it's only up to the elbow right now. We want to wait a little bit on anti-venom. Right? He had systemic signs and other issues. And above that mark, he was fasciculating from all the neurotoxins. Right? So it's not heme toxin versus neurotoxin, it's combinations. Yes?
I hear you over and over saying that there's a hesitancy to give the anti-venom. Why?
The question is, I'm being repetitive and redundant on there's a lot of hesitancy to give anti-venom. Why? That's what I'm trying to fight, and that's why I'm here to help educate. It used to be famous for the side effects, and we've heard about a lot of these things, and oh, it might be too expensive. You know what? If I can shorten their stay in the ICU and get them back to work, and I have a picture coming up, like a case, it's going to blow your mind. But it's not needed. The woman in Georgia that died this past year because the hospital refused to give them anti-venom. she might be allergic to it. She's been before. So what? All right, as an 16-year-old EMT in New Jersey, I can treat anaphylaxis. Right? But the only cure for venom is anti-venom. So it's a great question. Why? I just don't know. Why is the sky blue? I don't know. They used to also say, you know, oh, it doesn't look like much damage, or it's a copperhead bite, so you just don't need anti-venom. This is a copperhead bite. This is not my photo. This is from Crowfab, the company, directly. I think the picture's from Dr. Banner, who's in Tennessee. But you can see the fang marks. You can see the red toe. It's swollen. It's very painful, very tender. And the tenderness and pain was going up the foot, even though the swelling was not. And they said, we're not going to give anti-venom. Right? There were signs of venom. Oh, it's probably just a dry bite, but the trauma from the bite caused all the swelling. This is the toe 7 days later. Right? And you know that hospital charges more than by the foot. Right? But it can make a difference. That guy that got bit by the 7 Eastern Diamondback, he went into full anaphylaxis. If you're bleeding to death and hemorrhaging out, do you want to do a surgical airway on that guy? No. Right? Needed a train. Right? But we got enough anti-venom up to him to treat it properly. This is in the helicopter, so that's why the GPS that's sitting next to the cooler has a straight line.
He survived.
He survived, yes. He's a terrific guy. He has a wildlife sanctuary.
Is he still resting the snakes?
What's that?
Is he still resting the snakes?
Yes, he was feeding it when he was too tired. Now, this gentleman is not a typical Florida man, but this is in Stark, northern Florida. And before a storm, he was cleaning up some debris, and he goes to pick up some logs or something, and there's a giant canebreaker, timber rattlesnake, under it. You know, it was like Austin Powers, go back and forth, but it bit him. He's 15 minutes from the nearest ER. He goes there, he says, I got bit by a snake. The triage nurse, or whoever's in the front, looks at the bite marks, sees no swelling, can barely see the fang marks. Go ahead and have a seat. So he's like, oh my God, and so he like stumbles into the bathroom because he feels he needs poop, and it's the death poop. You all know what death poop is, right? Like just before you're about to die, you're just like, "Rah," right? He sycophized, he starts bleeding out from everywhere. They finally rush him back, and they're starting to give the antivenom. Give all the antivenom
I had those
give
before.
him and ship him to us. They intubate him. This is him once he was transferred to me at the University of Florida in Shands, right? He's on 3 pressors. He's ventilated. He's bleeding out. His heart rate is in the 160s. Ischemic across the board because he's an older guy. He can't really handle this, right? His gross blood coming from everywhere. And they barely had the anti-venom up, the couple of vials, right? So I like take it out of the pump. I'm like, 999. I guess you do on the pumps. I don't know. I'm an old school paramedic. I'm just get it out of the pump and just run it, right? So his blood pressure, despite being on 3 pressors, was 50 over 30 by an A-line, right? We gave him the antivenom, 12. He had already gotten 6. He gets another 12 vials because it's severe envenomation at Crowfab. As that little IV bag is emptying, his pressure starts coming up. And I said to the nurse, Kirsten, turn off the pressors. When the pressure got up to about 68 systolic. What do you want me to go down to? 0, off, 9, stop, nada? She's like, what? And I unplugged the pumps. As the antivenom bag goes down, the pressure just continued going up, and his heart rate leveled at 110, and his pressure was 120, 124, something like that, systolic, with no pressors. Why? Because the process, this venom has a lot of heme toxins and local toxins, but the local ones are delayed, and has a lot of neurotoxins. He had full autonomic dysfunction, right? This is after he was bit. Can you even see the fang marks? Even on my screen, I could barely see them, right? And there's no swelling in the arm. But we gave him enough anti-venom, and we give him the anti-venom, you wait an hour, you reassess, and if you need to give another loading dose, you give more. Otherwise, we just do like a drip. This is him 2 days later. He went from almost arresting to this, and he was back at work 8 days later. He's a blue-collar worker raising his grandkids. So to say how many vials I had to give him was too much. That guy has no permanent pain. By the second day in the ICU, he needed nothing but Tylenol. Tylenol, not even IV Tylenol. Now, less than 24 hours later, that same weekend, I had another gentleman. This is typical Florida man, as you can see by the tattoos. Right? He caught the cane He was waiting to skin it fresh, but he wanted to show off for a girl, so he takes the cane out. The skin is supposedly better if it's like a fresh kill. Right? So he got bit. He was in cardiac arrest. So on top of doing ACLS, we're giving him antivenom. He survived. He was discharged after like a week and a half. Right? Full renal breakdown. And you can see the swelling. This picture was not until the next day. The swelling on that other guy didn't show up until the next day. And then went away. Right? So that swelling, it's not just that simple, oh, it's not swelling, it's not happening. You need to look and assess it. And that's, I really want to get you out there and not be afraid to call. If you call me and I realize it's not venomous, cool. Then we can just do wound care and get them out. But we need to be ready to pull the trigger, or you're basically pulling the trigger. Now, this is another Florida man in training. He was outside of Tampa, a teenager that had a water moccasin as a pet under his bed. He didn't tell his mom. Look at him, I don't want to say. He got bit, he went to kiss him and it bit him on the face. He was a scrawny little kid before this, right? So airways, this is why when horses get envenomed, if they're envenomed on the snout, the nose, the horse can die because they're obligate nose breathers. Same with this kid. I mean, he could have lost his airway very quickly, right? Now, I gave this lecture for EMS up in somewhere in northern Florida. I get a phone call from their chief. Hey, Doc, I got a 29-year-old male bit on the tongue by a rattlesnake. So, of course, I said, yeah, right. And he's like, no, really? And I'm like, oh, Florida man. Okay, I need you to make sure that what do you see? He's like, no, we're not on scene yet. We called Shannon's Care. We're Trauma 1. We wanted to give you the heads up. We're just pulling on the scene now. I said, okay, I want to make sure that you, click. We get disconnected. This is 35 minutes after he's envenomed. So very swollen tongue into the arterial high blood supply area, right? Just the swelling and the trauma from his tongue, right? He couldn't keep it in. The picture on the right was 24 hours later after he got all the antivenom. His wife thanked us not for saving his life, but for getting him to be able to close his mouth for once, because his tongue wasn't swollen as much. Now, let's talk about his labs. First set of labs. What are your platelets normally supposed to be? Hopefully greater than 100, 110, right? Which is really about 1,000. His first set of labs, his platelets are 7. He had a platelet for every dwarf that hung around Snow White. Right? Fully reversed by antivenom. Now, Profab, like I said, is very safe. It's FDA approved. It is expensive. And the way that they make it, is actually with sheep instead of horses. They extract from all these different species around North America, all over in certain places in the US. They freeze dry the venom. They send it to Australia, and they inject it into sheep. And why Australia? Because it's an island. They don't have to worry about mad cow disease. These sheep get better health care than we do, right? And then after a bit, they take the blood out, and then they separate the antibodies that the sheep have made, and they spin it down to separate it. And then it goes to England, and they cleave, your antibodies are basically Y-shaped. They cleave the Y arms off, so they can't do the YMCA anymore. And it's a smaller protein with less allergic reactions or less serum segments. That's why it's so expensive, but by golly, it works. It works really well. It's pretty safe. There are set algorithms out there from a bunch of specialists since 2011 on how to decide, do you give antivenom, do you not, who do you consult. It keeps referring on the right side to calling a specialist, right? The Poison Center or me, something like that, right? And it's, do you want to pull this out on your first taking care of a snake bite? No, and it looks pretty complicated, doesn't it? So there's certain things that it's going to come down to deciding, is it a dry bite, is it not, is it worth the risk, and the risks are pretty low. For the most part, they'll get maybe a little serum sickness. Urticarial hives might be anaphylaxis, but more likely it's anaphylactoid. So you just need to slow the rate down a little bit. Or if it's just hives, give them a little Benadryl. Right? That'll go away, done. If you really need to, I'm allergic to horses, right? If I have to get an antivenom that's horse-derived, do I still need antivenom? You betcha. Just give me some epinephrine ahead of time, right? Any question about pit vipers? Now there is a second FDA-approved antivenom on the market for pit vipers called Anavib. It's only for rattlesnakes though. It's only approved for rattlesnakes. So more research needs to be done. It looks promising. So if it's the undifferentiated pit viper, which 99% of bites are, I can use Crofab and know what I'm saying. If I know it's a rattlesnake, then I'll consider using Anavib. All right. Now the coral, right? How do I know that this is a coral? Well, it's my picture, my slides. My picture from Lieutenant Mullen from the venom response team took this picture. You know, it's the coloring pattern. This is a North American coral. There are 3 in the United States. The Florida, the Texan, and the Arizona. The Florida one is the most toxic. Arizona is not significant at all, so we don't even worry about it. If you're bitten in Texas, you wait until signs of envenomation or severe envenomation to give antivenom, and the antivenom is actually from the Florida, Mypurus fulvius, right? So how do I know that it's a coral? Well, it's a Steeler fan, so its head is black and yellow, always, right? And then the striping pattern, right? And I'm going to get into your little rhino, right? They're wiry. They only eat other snakes and sometimes some small lizards. This is from my venom response unit I was picking up. They're very wiry and very quick. They want to get away, but they can get up to about 3 feet, right? This is a typical Florida woman. You can see her tattoo. She picked up the snake and posted on Facebook, "Hey, is this venomous?" Florida woman, job security, right? So, yeah, that was amazing. So, the coral snake, the North American coral, is famous for its color pattern, and it has some mimickers. The king snake, or the scarlet snake, is on the left or the right? The left, and on the right is the venomous snake. Now, less than a mile from my apartment, when I lived in Gainesville, was this bike rack. So I only, for safety's sake, I only lock my bike on this side. Okay? However, so a lot of you are like, oh, red on yellow, kill a fellow, red on black, friend of Jack. Guess what? That only works on North American coral snakes, and not even all of them. These are North American coral snakes. Where's the red on yellow? Oops. Where's the red on yellow on the left one? He's the total Steelers fan, and you gotta get into it and look at this pigmentation. This isn't like someone getting a designer coral. This can happen, right? And they don't have big heads. They're usually coraled up. Where is even the head? And people get bit on their hands because they're picking it up. Right. So the rhyme. Red and yellow kill, just forget that rhyme. I wrote you something special. So this is the poem I want you to remember when it comes to coral snakes in North America. They might want to hear this too. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't pick up the snake. Bacon. Yeah, I was going to say a word will bite you, but you filled it. It's a good poem. But it's good to learn. There's a lot of myths around the North American coral snake. It's rear-fanged. It needs to latch on and chew to get the venom in. All those are fake. The coral snake is an elapid. It's in the same family as the cobra. So it has small front fangs, as you can see in the skull up at the top. They do not need to chew. They have venom glands that will squeeze and get it in. 2 drops will kill a full-grown adult. It is very toxic. And here is enough to kill 6 adults. There's 12 drops in here. Now, they don't have a very good mechanism to envenomate us or envenom us, right? They don't have the wide mouths and stuff, but just a scratch can do it. So how likely is it to get 2 drops into you? Pretty unlikely, unless you're Florida man, right? They don't have to, all it needs to do is scratch, and some venom can get out under the skin, and it's very, very potent. okay? Now, the myth of the mouths aren't wide enough to bite you, except for on the webbing of your hands, is because most people that get bit by coral are handling it. So don't handle it, right? Another myth with the coral is that there's no antivenom. Now, I got it. I got plenty of it, right? They did stop, it was made by Wyeth, they did stop production in 2004, roughly, I think. But Pfizer bought all their remaining products, and they're actually making it again. And all this stuff, so if you have a box that says expires in 2018, guess what happens December of 2018? They test the lot, and I get a letter from the USDA and the FDA that says, lot number this that says it expires in 2019 January, now expires 2020. Right? Isn't that crazy? But it's freeze-dried and it lasts a long time. But they keep testing it. Soon we're going to run out of that stock, but we're already stockpiling the new product that is everything's available. Now, it's hard to get coral antivenom. Some hospitals sporadically in Florida have it. It's really expired. But again, Tampa General has, ORMC had a couple vials. UF, Shands, Gainesville, and then Jacksonville have it. Otherwise, the venom response teams have it. So Venom 2, we get a phone call, we might have a snake bite. Okay, we literally come, lights and sirens, to the emergency department to bring you the antivenom. So as opposed to trying to ship the patient somewhere, they can get great care here. You just need the antivenom, so we'll bring it to you in bedside education too. So you can call us 24/7. They're dedicated units of paramedic firefighters that will bring you the appropriate antivenom, and we won't leave the patient side until they're in the ICU, and no physician or nurse or tech or anything has any questions. And then we actually deliver extra antivenom and say, we sign it over to the pharmacy and say, when the patient's discharged, let us know if there's any unused, and we'll come and pick it up. And we only charge at cost, so just refeed it. So the antivenom's there and it is available. You just need a cost. Now, there's a lot of things where it's like, well, the antivenom, are they symptomatic, are they not? You're not going to suddenly be like paralyzed, oh, my hand got bit and now my hand's asleep, right? And then the arm, right? It doesn't work like that. In fact, humans usually, unless you have a big whopping dose, are fairly asymptomatic until 11 or 12 hours. Crazy, right? And what happens is, it starts central. So this boy was bit by a 3-foot coral snake, 10 years old, very active, soccer team, all this stuff. His name's Garrett. Mom gave me permission. That's my buddy now. He picked up the snake by a net. He loves snakes. And then he took it out of the net to identify it. And Mom said the snake is faster than Google. He got bitten not once but twice. Now, this is the only coral envenomation in North America that I've ever seen that actually caused bruising and ecchymosis. That's how bad it got him. The snake was about to fall in his hands, and he tried to, didn't want to hurt the snake, and then the snake was like, ah, you're hurting me, because he was trying to catch it. Right? So he gets bitten twice. Immediately, he syncopizes, and he's vomiting. His mom drives him an hour, 20 minutes to one of our freestandings. This is, there's a series of events that are happening, right? So he's vomiting, he's syncopized. For an hour, 20 minutes, they give him Zofran. They call me. I said, send him to the main hospital. We'll start mixing the antivenom. I was finishing a shift at another freestanding. And so I call ahead and this and that. So he gets there, and there was some miscommunication. And they said, well, we used to just watch and wait. This is the attending that, I'm a brand new attending at UF. So it was kind of weird, and the other attending, who has since retired, was like, well, we watch and wait these. We don't see if they're symptomatic, so just do a poison control test. So poison control said to the resident on the phone, are they vomiting? The resident looked at him and said, no, there's nothing left to vomit. Despite Zofran and Phenergan and everything, the kid's sitting there still retching. They asked the question, was he vomiting? But they didn't ask the right question. Right? So poison control couldn't give the right recommendations in that case. So there was a delay. And there's a further delay. Different things, right? So finally, and he's really well, so it took him a couple hours to get antivenom, right? He got antivenom at 8.5, I think. So look, At hour 11 and a half, this is him in the ICU. Now, the only symptoms until this point, the nausea, that everything had subsided, the little scratches, if you tap on it, was super painful. If I stab you with that 21 gauge needle and I'm tapping on it, is it going to continue to hurt? No. Is the vomiting from pain or being scared? These are systemic signs. Now, at hour 11 and a half, he has ptosis. Look at his eyes. He can barely keep them open. Central paralysis, right?
Look up for me.
You're going to notice also his eyes kind of look chameleon. He was complaining the sign or symptom was double vision, but the sign was this conjugate gaze. So look, one of his eyes is paralyzed. You get double vision when one of your eyes doesn't track with the other.
All right, follow the finger. To the right and left. No.
Smile at the
Down,
voice.
over.
You can see only his right eye moved. So you become paralyzed, right? That was despite getting it. So he ends up getting more anti-venom, right? That ptosis. He was a young kid. A couple days later, he's able to open his eyes a little bit more. And a month later, he's able to fully open his eyes. So I gave him a t-shirt. So I went to his house to go and check up and follow up on him. Now, he said to me in his cute little country accent, he goes, "You know what, Dr. Mann? I had all the signs. I don't know why I didn't get it right away." I said, "I don't know either, Gary." He's like, "You know what? Either I can't run full speed." A little boy, right? Can't run at recess, can't play. Because when you run, you instinctively look down every so often to see where your feet are. Whenever he would look down, his right eye was paralyzed. So he would get double vision and he would fall over. Can you imagine? Does anyone have a son or child? None of you have kids? Come on. I'm going to get a snake if you don't. Raise your hands if you have a kid. Right? Now imagine if your kid for 7 months could not play at recess or play sports. Imagine if you, for 7 months, couldn't run, couldn't work, right? And otherwise, it used to be, we'll wait and see. Some of the venom is irreversible. He's young. He happened to regenerate nerves and the receptors and everything. But for us, that would be very different, right? So we don't wait. If we highly suspect that it's a coral, or I know it's a coral, and even may have scratched the skin, we give the antivenom. 5 vials, you're golden, right? Now, the last little bit, this is also nalapid. So this is the cobra, right? So this stuff does happen in the U.S. This is a case of Venom 1 versus the king cobra. Anyone ever see the show Miami Ink? So this is Tyler from Miami Ink. He was messing with the king cobra, feet handling it, and he got bit. He calls the Venom 1 team and says, "I just got bit by so-and-so's king cobra. I'm going to Homestead Hospital." He had full airway collapse, neurological collapse, paralysis within 15 minutes. So he's on the ventilator. We gave him the antivenom within 45 minutes. He was extubated later that day. He had the ptosis, like you can see. He also had bigeminy. Now, the ICU didn't know what to do about the bigeminy. He's a 28, 29-year-old guy. So they consulted cardiology. And who are the physicians, P's or NP's in the room? Be honest. None? Oh, all right. So these docs, right? They consult, because they consult cardiology. And cardiology says, well, we're not going to cath them. Patient in bigeminy, we'll monitor. I'm like, you don't need to cath them. You don't need an antidysrhythmic other than what? Antivenom. So you gave the antivenom, the bigeminy went away. Spectacled cobras can do some really nasty. The most cobra venomations in the U.S. are spectacled cobras. But then we also have Taz, as another example in Tallahassee. Taz is an albino monocle cobra. Taz bit some Florida man who was injecting himself thinking he become immune to antivenom. It doesn't work. So immediately after the bite, he has paralysis and pain going up his arm and the swelling. He used a venom extractor on one of the 2 bite wounds, and you're going to see it progress. And where you use that venom extractor that you can buy at Bass Pro Shop or REI is where you have all the necrosis. Irreversible damage. right? But if he'd come in sooner, he's lucky he didn't get paralyzed. But if he had come in sooner, we could have stopped all that hand damage, and he has trouble using his thumb. Luckily, he's right-handed, right? So, let's wrap this up. What do you do for an envenomation? Number one, do not kill the snake, do not bring it in. This is a gentleman bit by a water moccasin. He was very upset that it bit him, so he killed it. He was in a lot of pain, and he was very upset at dead snake. So he grabbed the snake by the upper jaw and the bottom jaw and ripped it open. It was like Mortal Kombat. Finish him! Right? And guess what happened to his other hand? He got envenomed. A dead snake can still envenom. A head alone can still envenom. So don't bring the snake. I don't want to come in the ER and be like, well, the snake's dead. We need to identify it. No, if it's a pit viper, it's a pit viper. And I said, this is a water moccasin, and they've got all these clinical signs of venomation. They're like, yeah, but I'm like, first off, I'm Cobra Commander. I say it's a water moccasin. They're like, well, it's dead. Let's take it. I said, don't you dare take it out.
They think it's dead.
They thought it was dead.
They thought it was
And
dead.
it's moving. And we ain't moving. I mean, this is in Texas when I was competing for Hurricane Harvey. A biohazard bag is not going to protect you. Imagine if that got loose in the hospital. And again, you know, a dead snake can still venomate you. So, talk to us. So what do? You mobilize, you keep it level of heart or higher. I'm going to show you a quick picture of how I do it in the hospital. I should walk in, if their foot's bit, their foot should look like they have a question. I mean, I'm talking 60 degrees up, right? The marking, not the circles. This is what I like to do, because swelling, pain, and tenderness are very important. So they're bit at 921, I circle the bite marks or scratches if I can see it. I see where there's swelling or local signs, redness, anything like that, and I put a line with an S for swelling, and I put the time. Then I say, hey bro, this is usually bro, where does the pain go up to? Oh, it goes up a little bit past my wrist. So I put a line there, and I put a P for pain. But then, by the way, I take all the jewelry off, the ring should be on. Then I take my finger and I go down the arm, and once they start screaming, that's tenderness. Okay? And I put a line there with a T. I do this every 5 to 10 minutes. And you're going to see the progression. These are the vital signs of envenomation. This is very important, because snakes don't come with meters. So I need to know, have an idea of how much venom is in them, so I know how much antivenom to give. Because we're going to stop that progression. Pain and tenderness. So a couple minutes later, oh, the tenderness is going higher. It's still progressing, right? My trick for elevation is, you know, these ortho socks. So not just in a sling. It's not like they sprained their ankle or got knee surgery, a little couple pillows. It needs to be up in the air. Is the swelling disappearing, or is it just redistributing? I don't care. Just, you don't want the venom concentrated at the edge of the extremity, because you can get tight compartments, you can do a lot more damage. The solution to pollution is dilution. Let it get in the body. I'm going to get them antivenom, you're going to get them antivenom, and it's going to seek out all the venom molecules. Do not shock. I've had somebody that electrocuted his brother with a car battery. Someone has grabbed a cop's taser. They try to sell stun gun. Don't use any of that. Those excision kits and stuff, the venom extractors, they do. In the Annals of Emergency Medicine, there's literally an article by Dr. Sean Bush, another ER doctor, that says venom extractors, they just plain suck. That is the God-given title in the peer-reviewed journal article. It's a great article, but it proves the damage and stuff. No ice, don't wait for symptoms. I guarantee they don't need an amputation, they don't need a fasciotomy if you treat them appropriately with antivenom. And even if they have confirmed compartment syndrome, you still shouldn't give these people fasciotomies because of what the toxins are doing there. It's not going to heal well, it's not going to go up. You can just elevate it and give them antivenom. So, leave you with these phone numbers. Poison Control also has these numbers, but the Venom 2 unit. So if you have a snake bite, you can just call this number. I'm going to make sure posters get out and stuff. If it's a new call, and use cell phone or even my cell phone. Hey, you got a bite? And we will keep in touch with you to help follow so that you can continue providing the great care that you all provide. just with a little bit more assistance because we have the experience with it. All right, and we interact, we report to poison control. All right, so with that, thank you, and any questions?
Thank you so much. I'm sure everybody will agree this was a great presentation. We're all smarter. Thank you for that bringing along Snake. I wasn't sure. But, so we'll get whatever information Dr. Penn sends to us, we'll get it out to our team, and so we can educate as well in the community, all right? All right. Y'all, thanks. Have a great day. We're a little behind, but that's okay. I know how fast you are, and your patients, like I said, they're waiting for you. Have a great Friday.